on an all-new Dr. Phil.
Imagine spending $25,000 on a wedding.
I had a guest list of 100.
Marrying yourself. Were you a bride?
Only at the rehearsal.
Were you afraid you weren't going to show up? Saying I do yourself.
If you want to celebrate yourself, that's great. I just think there are other ways to do it.
That's not your business.
Lead to people marrying multiple people, marrying animals.
When I listen to you, I just feel intense.
Let's do it.
Have a good show, everybody. Here we go.
This is a safe place to talk about hard things.
Stand by. We'll count you down.
Today is going to be a changing day in your life.
5, 4.
Get ready to take care of you. Imagine spending $25,000 on your wedding with 12 brides, 2 event planners, and family and friends gathered to watch as you walk down the aisle, but there's no groom. So who are you marrying? Well, you're marrying yourself. Marriage, known as sologamy, is a symbolic ceremony where you commit a meaningful and loving relationship with yourself. Back in 2003, Sex and the City's popular TV character Carrie Bradshaw announced she would marry herself, which was a foreign concept. But recently, marriage has been adopted by celebrities such as Adriana Lima, Emma Watson, Fantasia Barrino, and Maya, and become a popular trend. Last month, Miley Cyrus' song Flowers, about celebrating self-love after divorce, became Spotify's most streamed song in a single week. But is sad due to yourself going too far. Now, critics of sologamy, self-marriage is narcissistic and making a mockery out of this special sacrament. Well, we're going to talk about that today. You guys will probably have some opinions about it. It's Valentine's Day, so we thought love would be a perfect topic. But first, meet a woman who proudly walked herself down the aisle and even kissed me after making the ultimate profession of self-love.
My name is Danny, and I married myself on December the 10th, 2022.
Commit to never giving up until your dying day. Do you promise to give yourself grace? Do you commit to praying and finding the answers within yourself? Do you promise to value yourself?
Yes, I do. I overcame a lot of trauma. It inspired me to marry myself. I realized I wasn't living for myself, and wedding was my chance to start over. I spent $4,000 on my wedding and 9 bridesmaids.
I'm not the only one getting married today. You are too. So there is a bag in your chair with a ring in it.
And I asked everyone else to marry themselves too.
I now pronounce you married to self.
People not treat me differently. They can like, ooh, she can afford her wedding on her own. She's confident, she loves herself. That's right.
I say this to you, Danny, and to all of us. Let no one separate you from the love of yourself.
There is no such thing as overdoing celebrating yourself. Some people buy themselves a bag. Some people buy themselves a nice cruise. Me, I gave myself in.
It's about the power invested in me as your friend. Ow! I now pronounce you a married woman. You may not kiss yourself.
Okay. Congratulations.
Thank you, Dr. Phil.
This was a big thing.
It was
What did you spend on it?
only the price of 4 Beyonce tickets, $4,000.
Did you have as much fun as a Beyonce concert?
I haven't been yet. Yeah, I'm on the list. But yes, I have a lot of fun.
Okay. So why do this? Because the fact that you love yourself, 100% would support. I mean, the fact that you would make that declaration to yourself, that you would make that declaration to others, that you would live that way, that you would embrace self-love, taking care of yourself, making yourself a priority. Everything that this seems to commemorate for you, I think is great. And I think it's wonderful that you would treat yourself that way. But why do you need this to commemorate that?
I grew up going to weddings my whole life, and I was taught that they were about love, joy, commitment. So I wanted to show that and share that with my family and my friends.
Did you doubt that in your?
Before, I experienced a lot of traumatic things growing up and in my younger days, and so I didn't always have self-love. I didn't always give myself everything that I needed. And I went on this long therapeutic journey. I stopped drinking, stopped having sex, and now it's time. I went to therapy. It's time to marry myself. I have something that I've never had before, and my cup is full.
Okay. So when you married yourself, you loved yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Already.
Well, yes. Mm-hmm.
Was this just to declare the world?
It was to share it at my wedding. I told my family and friends all the
What did
things.
they think about it?
They thought at first, my mama thought it was crazy.
Okay.
My dad walked away from me and said, "Come on, let's my mom's name. Like, don't listen to her. She's crazy." And then afterwards, they thought it was cool. They experienced it and they understood. I think my dad had to go through the entire process to understand.
Because it is atypical. It's not a common thing.
Yeah.
It's getting more, but
weird is cool.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Also joining us virtually is Danny's mom, Celeste. What kind of bride was she, Celeste?
She was very extra at first. At the practice, she was, yes, I don't want to call her bridezilla, but she's almost there. Giving all these orders. You got to keep going through the practice over and over, but it was really exciting.
Yeah. Were you a bridezilla?
Only at the rehearsal, yes.
Were you nervous?
I was very nervous.
Were you afraid you weren't going to show up?
To be honest, there was one point I was, I don't know if I can do this. I wanted to run away from me.
Stand yourself up.
No, but, weddings bring a lot of emotion. And so it's kind of like you have to make it perfect, especially no one's been to a self-marriage before in my family. So I didn't want it to not go well. And so I wanted it to be perfect in my own way.
Now, you came around to it after a while, right?
Yeah,
Celeste,
after a while, yes.
And why did you eventually embrace it?
Because after she explained it to me, what it was, and I thought about it, I was like, you do need to love yourself in order to, to be successful in this world. In order to have a relationship with somebody, you have to love yourself first. So at first I didn't understand it when she first said it, and I was like, well, I haven't met anybody, so who are you marrying?
Everything you say it represents and typifies is very healthy to me, and you seem like you're very happy with that decision.
Yeah.
So Danny says, why do we need to put limits on celebrating ourselves? My next guest has some thoughts about that, so we're going to meet him after the break.
Marriage is a sacrament. I think the overwhelming majority of conservatives believe that it's a relationship between a man and a woman, but I know all conservatives believe it is between two people. I think it's just probably a cry for attention.
My name is Sasha Kagan. I'm a life coach, and I've been studying self-marriage for 20 years. I just married myself at 40 because I wanted to do something meaningful and really to love myself no matter what. I got married with a small group of friends. I got to myself in the Japanese gardens in Buenos Aires. I got my self-engagement necklace the day of at a gas station. My self-marriage cost about $100. In my work as a life coach, I have had the pleasure of officiating about a dozen marriage ceremonies. I do not believe that self-marriage is selfish. In fact, I believe the opposite, that the more you take care of yourself, the better you will be for everyone else in your life.
Well, we're back talking about self-marriage. You just saw my next guest, Sasha, talk about why she chose to marry herself at 30. And she's not alone. Last segment, we spoke with Danny, who proudly said, "I do," to herself on her 30th birthday. Now, in response to criticism of self-marriage, Danny says, well, why wouldn't you want to celebrate yourself? I agree with that. It's just some people say, why go to this level of having a ceremony? Does that make a mockery of marrying to another person? And so some people just don't agree.
I'm John McEntee, the founder of The Right Stuff, the dating app for conservatives. The mission is to bring together that have shared values. The biggest deal breaker in the past when it came to dating was always religion, but now it's political affiliation. Marriage is a sacrament. I think the overwhelming majority of conservatives believe that it's a relationship between a man and a woman, but I know all conservatives believe it is between two people. I feel like self-marriage is not a real thing, and I feel like it's making a mockery of a very sacred thing. I think it's just a cry for attention. If you're marrying yourself, you're being very self-centered. People are too focused on themselves. If they were more focused on their relationships with other people, more people would come into their life. They would have more opportunities with relationships. I think a lot of people in society don't want to put in the work. We need to encourage people to have children in the tree. I'm in favor of women in the workforce, but I also think when it comes to marriage, I think people are waiting too long. Right now, people think they just name something and that defines it. If I'm playing in the backyard with my nephews, we call it the Super Bowl. That doesn't make it the Super Bowl. And calling something a marriage does not make it a marriage.
Well, joining us is John McEntee, the founder and CEO of The Right, a dating app for conservatives. And also joining us is Sasha Kagan, a life with the focus on women over 40 and author of Quirky Alone, a manifesto for uncompromising romantics, who has been studying self-marriage for over 20 years and has actually officiated over a dozen self-weddings. So thank both of you for being here. Now, John also served as the director of the White House Presidential Personnel Office during the administration. You've got a problem with this. What's your problem with it?
My problem is making a mockery of a very sacred thing. I think if you want to celebrate yourself, that's great. I just think there are other ways to do it.
Yeah.
That's not your business.
Just spit it out. Just tell it what you think.
I think that you're like deeply invested in how people like celebrate themselves, and that's why I'm doing it, because I think that self-love allows us to give to our communities. When you have a full cup, you have extra to give. And so I don't think that you can put limit on how me, you, Dr. Phil celebrates themselves. We didn't spend your money.
Right. Yeah, so I think there's some institutions in this country that we're very quick to tear down without realizing why they're there in the first place. I think 10 years ago, conservatives were called crazy when they said, this will lead to people marrying themselves. This will lead to people marrying people, marrying animals, marrying objects. And I think we just have to be very careful with how we're using terms and what we're defining as marriage. And it might not be my business how you spend money, but I think we as a society have created a certain structure, a certain way, for a certain reason, and we need to just slow down.
When I listen to you, I just feel like really tense and like afraid.
Drink some water.
And so basically, most people who marry themselves also are interested in being in relationship with other people, whether they marry them or not. Actually, these are people who like really are interested in personal growth. They really want to be there for themselves and for others. So, yeah, we're not against marriage. I mean, I don't really care either way, but it's something, I think marriage, because we know marriage is important.
You said you've been studying this for years.
Mm-hmm.
When was the first self-marriage that you know of?
I don't know of the first self-marriage, because it feels to me like a lot of women have had this idea. And when I first encountered the idea, it was in 2003, and I was writing my book, Quirky Alone, which is all about not settling. And back then, it was like a little bit more fringy, like art or doing it. And now it's really happening. Like people of all occupations and walks of life are saying, like, this is something for me. And I just keep growing. Like I didn't expect that. And it's really beautiful.
Yeah. If it's a rite of passage where it's just kind of, where you join a fraternity or a church or something, and it's just kind of a declaration or something, I understand that. But you would marry, if you met someone that you fell in love with, marry him or her, would you do that?
Yeah, of course.
So you wouldn't have to divorce yourself.
No, self-love is so different from romantic love. It's not the same thing.
All right. My next guest just celebrated her 6-month self-marriage anniversary. So I guess you could say she's still a newlywed. We'll meet her after the break. You spent a lot of money on it.
I spent a lot of money.
This was a blowout.
It was a fairy tale wedding minus the groom.
Today about self-marriage or sologamy, and you know what this brought back to me in things, because I've said forever, Robin and I have been married for 47 years. We've been together for over 50, and I've always said that one of our secrets to success is not trying to change each other, because I've always said the last thing I want to do is be married to me. And really, because I don't want to be married to somebody like me. I don't want to turn over and I don't want to roll over and look at me in the morning, listen to me all day. I want to be married to somebody completely different. Danny says she married herself at 50, Sasha at 40. My next guest, Sonia, at 50. Take a look.
We are gathered here today to witness something we can all agree is revolutionary.
My name is Sonia, and I married myself for my 50th birthday on August 13th. I wanted to marry myself because I had the business, I had the home, I had the car. The only thing I didn't have was the marriage.
Here we are today, with Sonia being an innovator, reminding us to celebrate Black women's life. It is important to commit to ourselves.
I had a guest list of 100. I had 2 wedding planners. I had 7 bridesmaids and a best man. It was the wedding minus the groom.
You are the evidence that the Black woman is the closest thing to God we have, and you deserve to be celebrated loudly. And what a way to celebrate yourself, to commit to a better version of yourself.
I started with a budget of $10,000. We ended up at $50,000. My dress was custom. It was about $950. I had a honeymoon. We went to Cancun. In the beginning, I had people that were leery on the idea, one being my mom. After she did her marriage, she came on board. She even wrote my vows.
Do you promise from this board to carry yourself with integrity and excellence?
I do.
Live your best.
I do.
Love yourself unconditionally?
I do. My response to people who say, why would I marry myself, is because I love myself.
Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you at 50, Miss Sonia.
Why did you wait so long to do it?
Well, I knew when I turned 50, I was going to do something symbolic for my 50th day.
Yeah.
And when you turn 50, you've reached a milestone. I have the business, I have a house, I have the kids. What don't I have? Haven't been married. So I'm going to commit to myself.
You spent a lot of money on it.
I spent a lot of money. It was either get married for your 50th birthday or I chose to get married.
So you spent $9 on your dress and $700 on a DJ, $5,000 on food and beverage, and then 2 planners just helped, right?
Yeah, my friends.
Yeah. And then they had 120 guests, and then you had 12 in the wedding party.
I did.
Yeah. This was a blowout.
Yeah, it was a wedding. It was a fairy tale wedding minus the groom.
Yeah. And if you meet a groom that you took a liking to, would this all over again?
Not that part.
Yeah.
We just go to the justice of and get married.
Yeah,
I've already done the wedding.
You tell him I've had that.
I've already done that. I don't want it again.
You know, and what you're talking about is that if this spread really widely, that could create problems. Like, for example, people are getting married less, having children less. We're dropping below a sustainable birth rate, and that sort of thing. So, which could spell economic disaster for the country. And you're saying if it got so widespread, that could contribute to problems there, right?
Sure, we're seeing declining birth rates. I think that shows a declining country. I think a country that's optimistic and that's thriving would be having lots of children. That has to do with us becoming less religious. The more religious a country is, the more children they have. I think more of an economic factor. It's a cultural factor. And if we can figure out to incentivize people to start families, I think that's a good thing.
My next guest says more and more people are flying solo, thinking having a partner would hamper them. But he says that's actually wrong. We'll talk about that after the break.
Folks are postponing marriage in many cases, and we're projecting going forward that young adults today, about 1/3 will never marry.
Closed captioning provided by...
I'm glad I'm not in a serious relationship right now because I didn't have all the love that I needed to give myself before, and I'm just pouring into me. One time I was on a date with this guy and I told him that I was to myself, and he said, I do not want to be in a relationship with someone who is married to themselves. So, he thought I was crazy. That's okay. Next.
Next. We're back talking about self-marriage, a trend that many say promotes self-love and empowerment. Sasha says the younger generation is approaching relationships in a different way. But my next guest says that's one of the biggest problems in America today. Joining us virtually is the director of the National Marriage Project and professor of sociology at the University of Virginia, Brad Wilcox. Now, Brad is also the author of the upcoming book, Get Married: Why Americans Must Defy the Elites, Forge Strong Families, and Save Civilization, and is studying marriage for over 20 years. Brad, thanks for taking time to talk to us today.
It's good to be here today, Dr. Phil.
We know in looking at certainly the young generation today, they're dating later in life. They're getting married less than this generations. Why do you think that's true?
Well, I think we have this sort of idea today that marriage is about basically, a capstone, and you've got to get all your ducks in a row in terms of, your career, your relationship, and everything else. And so folks are kind of postponing marriage in many cases, postponing kind of the pursuit of marriage in many cases. I think also it's the case, too, that a lot of folks have very high expectations for, a spouse, and so it makes it harder to find someone who would kind of meet the bar for them in this cultural context. And the final thing that I would say is we're seeing more challenges with men. A lot of young men today working full-time, they're not really kind of fully engaged in their relationship, spending too much time on the Xbox. And so there's a kind of a malaise among some men that also, I think, is part and parcel of why we're seeing this dramatic retreat from marriage and full American life today.
And you say that it's really, the institution of marriage has really collapsed since the 70s. How much?
So the marriage rate's by 60% since 1970. And this is, we're kind of an uncharted territory here with low marriage rates and low fertility rates as well here.
60% since the 70s?
Yes, that's correct. And we're projecting kind of going forward that a record share of young adults today, about 1/3, will never marry. And again, this is sort of record territory for the U.S.
I've read some studies about this, and a lot are saying waiting till things get fixed, till society gets fixed, things get worked out. Like, I don't want to bring a child into a world that's this messed up. Isn't it always going to be messed up?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I think there's really no perfect time to put a ring on it and to go ahead with having kids. There's always going to be some kind of economic or military or or today environmental challenge facing us. It's, I think for most of us, the best thing we can do is to find a partner and to create a life together, and that's what marriage is all about.
And you say people who are married are markedly happier, less lonely, more likely to be prosperous?
Yeah, what we see in the data is that folks who are married are about as likely to be very happy. They're about half as likely to be lonely. And as they kind of move through life, they're more kind of prosperous on average in the moment. And as they head into retirement, for instance, they have about 10 times the assets as their fellow Americans who are single or divorced and living on their own. So just kind of huge differences when it comes to the social and the emotional and the financial well-being of married Americans versus single Americans today.
Do married men live longer?
They do. I mean, some would put it at 8 or 9 years in terms of if you kind of get married and stay married in your your early 30s. It's about what we would argue about sort of the equivalent of smoking a pack of cigarettes a day, but kind of in the opposite direction. So, the idea, of course, is that if you're a smoker, you should at least get and stay married.
Yeah. My good friend, the comedian Ron White, says married men live longer, but they're more willing to die. So, who knows? So what does Sonia's mom have to say about her wedding? And what does my audience think about self-marriage? I'd really like to know what you guys think. We'll be right back.
I want people to know there's nothing wrong with marrying yourself. I want them to accept me for who I am with all my flaws. I've met people who think that it is the most ridiculous thing that they've ever heard. You love yourself, commit to yourself.
In our audience today is Sonia's mom, Melva. What was your response to your daughter's, Sonia's, marrying herself?
Dr. Phil, at first, like, oh, here she goes. She's always been her own person, danced to her own beat. So I'm like, what better way for her to celebrate who she is?
Mm-hmm. So you had no problem with it?
Absolutely not.
Brad was just sharing some statistics and trends from the sociological literature about marriage rates and impact, and you wanted to comment on some of his conclusions.
Well, I just think it's important to say there are other sociologists. Her name is Bella DiPaolo, who does a lot of work about happiness and marital status and being single. So there are people who have written whole books, and there's many ways to let data. And the fact is many people are not happy in their marriages. So I think I'm against marriage. Like, I am open to that for sure. But we're all here saying, like, we want to sell our lives no matter what. So I just find it weird when people get upset about it. Like, upset about my happiness? Like, it's strange.
Well,
I just find it really bizarre.
Is there anything that Professor Wilcox said that you take issue with specifically?
Well, I don't have all the data in front of me, but I would go through the data and dispute someone. So I think that when people come forward with...
What in particular did you find?
Well, that married people are always happier than single people. I don't think that's always true. Like, single people are often more involved with their communities. They volunteer more. They have more friends. So there's many different ways to look at life and how people's lives are. And we have like a mask of like, oh yeah, they're happily married. We see their pictures on Facebook. But what's going on behind closed doors is not always what it looks like. And we're not saying our lives are perfect. Like, I still have struggles. As I've been married to my 10 years, lots of ups and downs, lots of other relationships with men, go on living your life. But I took this stand for myself, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful memory that I made. And I'm happy that other women are doing that. Like, I think women who marry themselves are the best women. And like, we all have to stay in touch.
So you think women that marry themselves are superior to women who marry others?
No, I mean, I like women.
Well, no,
I think women are great. I'm not
you just
queer,
said you
but
think,
I like women.
Well, you just said women that marry themselves are the best women.
I think they're innovative people who really dig deep, and they do brave things. And I think it's really cool. And they're spreading a message of self-love. And those are the people I like to be around. Of course, most of the people I like did not marry themselves, and I love them, and that's okay, of course. But I find it very admirable.
Okay. Is anyone in my audience interested in marrying themselves? Does this sound like an idea to you? You would? You would? I don't see any men's hands up.
We have one right over there.
You would marry yourself? Yeah? Okay. Okay. Why would you marry yourself?
Because honestly, I think it's very honorable to want to celebrate yourself. And honestly, I'm at a point in my life where I feel like it's good to look back on the accomplishments of your life and the fact that you've made it here. And yeah, so thank you.
Would you then not to marry someone else? I mean, would that do you if you married yourself?
I don't think it would. I mean, I would still marry someone else.
Okay. Would that be cheating on you?
Yeah, but I'd forgive myself.
Well, we're going to hear from one of my staffers who says this topic hit close to home. We'll be right back. All hour long, we've been talking about self-marriage, and I'd like to introduce Callie, who works as a production assistant here and helped put this episode together. And next to Callie is her sister Cameron, a mental health influencer who she advocates for those who don't see a future worth living, which is a great thing to do, by the way. Thank you for your attention to that.
Thank you.
Callie, let me start with you. What about this rang a bell for you?
I work with a lot of wonderful, wonderful people while putting these shows together. But you guys just really stood out to me. I feel like every time we had a call, I didn't want it to end. I was like, give me a little more wisdom. They're just so empowering and strong and brave. And, you know, being a young woman in this world, it's very easy for other people to kind of put you in a box and tell you what you need to be and what you need to be for others. And I felt it was so empowering to meet people that were so brave to, you know, stand out there and be like, I adore myself and I'm living on my terms.
Yeah, and Cameron, she shared this with you. She called and talked. What did you think when she broached the subject with you?
Oh, I thought it was beautiful. I love it. I want to go to the extremes of marrying myself because I truly do believe the depression rates are skyrocketing right now. Society, especially the younger generation, is being set to believe that they have no power, that they are incomplete without validation and reassurance, whether that's coming from social media or a partner, another person, a group of people, your family. So I think this sets a beautiful example to really put yourself on that pedestal instead. And so I want to go with it. I think it's great.
Yeah. Do you think something that would potentially get real traction in this country?
I hope so. I really do hope so.
Well, one of the things that would concern me about this is what John and I were talking about before, and I think people don't see this tsunami coming, but the birth rate in this country has dropped below sustainable levels. And if the birth rate doesn't get up to like 2.1, there's a real problem, right?
That's right. Yeah, and I think our society right now is focusing probably on the wrong things. I think self-love is fine, but we need to remember things like responsibility and sacrifice. And I think people that are living a like really purposeful, driven life are going to be more optimistic, and they're going to have more children. So that will work itself out. We've seen this go in waves throughout history. It can definitely come back from it.
So can I say something about that? I think it's true that we have to think about what's going to happen when we get older and there won't be as many young people. That just means we need more policies to support people growing older and single. That will happen for many people. So yeah, we should think about it, but we just have to create a society that supports people to have time to be mothers, to grow old and have resources, to be loved, you know, to be taken care of.
It's a complex problem with a lot of different answers to it. And the sisters here, Ellie and Cameron are hoping that Sasha will officiate a self-marriage for them backstage. So we'll see how that all works out. So never know what's going to happen around here. So final thoughts when I come back. We've been talking about self-marriage today, and depends on how you define it in your mind. But if you're defining this as a ceremony that you go through, that's an individual thing. But if you look at what it represents, which is you're making a declaration that you love yourself and that you're committing to about who you are, prioritizing yourself, and doing things that make you happy in your life. It's a real hard chore to find something wrong with that. Because as Robin has said for and ever, you can't give away what you don't have. And if you love yourself, nurture yourself, care for yourself, that just gives you more that you can share with your community, your world, people around you. And if you allow yourself to get emotionally bankrupt, then what do you have to give? And if this is something that causes you to actually ask the question, do I love myself? Do I care enough about myself? Then, that can be a good thing. Would I spend $15,000 to have a ceremony to marry myself? Not in a million years. But I don't feel that need. But if you're someone that does, it's your business, like you said. If that's what you want to do and that's what you value, then more power to you. And you and others have said that doesn't mean that I won't meet somebody and get married and maybe have a family or whatever. So it's not mutually exclusive, right?
It's not. Not anti.
But I want to thank all of my guests today. For more information about today's episode, or if you'd like to share your story, log on to drphil.com. We'll be discussing this on all my social media platforms. You know where to find me. I do. And don't forget to check out my True Crime podcast, Mystery and Murder, by Dr. Phil. Also, be sure to listen to Robin's podcast, I've Got a Secret with Robin McGraw. She talks to functional medicine specialist Kelsey Kohler and shares her triumphant story of using her education and passions to escape her cult. And now listen to Robin's podcast talking about the aftermath or escape, her mental resilience, and being relentless about turning your dreams into a reality. You can find these on wherever you listen to podcasts, really, Apple, Spotify, or just wherever. Thanks for being here. Stay safe. We'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.
Callie, what is drawing you to the desire to marry yourself?
I think it is a beautiful token of gratitude, a promise to keep on putting myself first and loving myself forever.
I love that. And Cameron, what is drawing you to self-marriage?
I know I'm the only person that has woken up with me every single morning, gone to bed with me every single night. I really want to be a moment to appreciate that. And
that's so beautiful. Yeah. Oh, how does it feel?
The love of my life. Cute.
Thank you. This feels like a new chapter of really being able to celebrate that myself. And it's very freeing.
But it took me a long time to really instill into my mind that I can give other credit to anyone else for my growth. I'm very proud of myself.